And we're back. Thanks for dropping in again. Truly appreciate it. I'm hoping that you are here because you saw my first maiden video, which was an introduction to a series of videos I intend to make. These videos being an autobiography of my life of the last 65 years. Hello, my name is Gerrit, and I'm a Dutch guy living in Dubai, in the United Arab Emirates, which is in the Middle East. And I'm currently driving through my compound on an extremely hazy day. The haze being caused by dust in the air, which we often get here in the Middle East, which I'm sure doesn't help for the air quality, because obviously we're breathing this air. Anyways, that's not what these videos are about. These videos are about the last 65 years of my life. Oh, it's very windy. I hope I've enabled the noise canceling function on my... Why is it so windy? This is why it's so dusty. Too much wind whips up too much dust. So as I said, I hope I enabled the noise cancellation. Otherwise, you might just have to redo this video at some stage if it's too noisy. So, who is Gerrit? As I've already said in my introduction, I was born in 1959 in a place called Utrecht, which is in the center of the Netherlands. And those of you who don't know what the Netherlands is always better known for Amsterdam. Whenever I say Netherlands, to people that are not very geographically inclined, they may give me a blank stare. If I say Amsterdam, I'm sure for all the wrong reasons, but people always know Amsterdam. But I am not from Amsterdam. Where I live is, or where I was born, I should say, it is about an hour's drive southeast of Amsterdam. So born in 1959 to two beautiful parents. My father, also born in Utrecht, and his name, now what are the chances, is also Gerrit. I mean, really, mind blown. You know, talk about coincidences. Same name, same surname for that matter, and same place of birth. It doesn't get more miraculous than that, eh? My mum, Bea, full name Beatrix, was actually born in Indonesia, in Jakarta, as I understand it. Now, please understand that as far as my autobiography is concerned, it should be obvious that these first memories are secondhand memories, right? These are memories of someone else telling me their memories involving me. So don't believe they're actually my direct memories, just in case you were wondering. Because at this stage of my life story, I'm not even in the picture yet. So as I said, Bea, born in Indonesia, to, as I understand it, an Indonesian mum and a Dutch Indonesian father. I do believe, but I'm not 100% sure, that my granddad, her father, was actually half Indonesian, half Dutch. And I do clearly remember how this wonderful man had bright, bright eyes. There might have been blue, there might have been green. I don't really remember. But I do remember, and this is a direct memory, that he had bright eyes. Now, as I have been told, his parents actually came from a province in the Netherlands called Friesland, which is right in the north. So I would imagine that they went to Indonesia during the colonial era because there's a bit of history. The Dutch used to have Indonesia as a colony, and they were a big trading nation with the Dutch East Indian Company, the VOC in Dutch, as an acronym. So I do believe that my great grandparents, therefore, were colonialists. And my granddad was born out of a marriage of a colonial parent married to a Indonesian wife. Now, after World War II, if I'm not mistaken, my mum must have been, I don't know, a teenager probably. They were all asked to leave Indonesia. All those with Dutch passports had to leave Indonesia. They were kicked out basically and had to go to Holland. I was going to say back to Holland, but obviously there is no back if you've never been to Holland. You were born in the tropics, but you are being transported back to a place just because you have that passport. So immigration has always been something that humans have had to worry about. And it's not something of recent times. So yeah, so my family on my mom's side, they had to leave Indonesia. They had to go to the Netherlands. And that's where my mom grew up. My granddad was actually an engineer building railways through the jungle in Indonesia, as he told me. He literally would be dropped with a crew in the jungles of Sumatra or whatever island and hack his way through a jungle to clear paths to build railways. And I don't know, maybe, I was a small little boy. I'm sure there must have been some embellishment to the stories. But apparently he used to sleep in trees with his rifle on his chest in the jungle because you didn't necessarily want to meet a tiger or wild boars while you were sleeping. So apparently he had a very interesting life. Um, they had a very good standard of living, as they tell me. I think my mom comes out of a fairly large family. I don't know, 6, 7 brothers and sisters. By the way, my dad came from a family of 9 children, I do believe, where he was sort of sitting in the middle. Um, but even my mom, relatively large family, they were living in a huge Indonesian style house with a wraparound veranda all the way around the house. And each child had their own bedroom and their own nanny. So they had a lot of staff working in that house, I've been told. A nanny in the Indonesian language is called a babu. So each child had their own babu. And then, of course, you had the cook and the gardener and the driver. So there was a lot of staff involved in running that household. Now, you must imagine that when they were left, when they were asked to leave Indonesia, they ended up living in a 3-bedroom flat in Amsterdam, in the outskirts of Amsterdam. Can you believe it? You go from that standard of living to a country with shit weather, by the way, a lot of rain, very cold in winter. You come from the tropics and you were living in a large house with servants, and now you end up living in a flat in Amsterdam. That must have been quite an adjustment, but it just they did, and they did quite well. Um, so my mum became a nurse, which I've always believed to be a very noble profession. I mean, I actually can do it. So when my mum met my dad, she was a nurse working in a hospital. Something she has done until she retired. And she retired close to 80 years old. Always looking after other people. Unbelievable, eh? It's truly unbelievable. Anyway, she was a nurse. My dad, I'm led to believe, was a doorman. Now, I don't know a doorman of what, but it must have been some building that deserved to have a doorman. And he stood there in a top hat and long tail coat, which in Dutch we call the billen ticker. Billen being your ass, the ticker is tapping. Because of the long tails on the back, taps your ass. I think it may also be called a morning suit. I don't know. I'm actually not that good on formal dress wear. But yeah, so top hat and a long tail coat. So that's how they met. And that's how they married. Now, in those days, by no means were they very well off, of course, both working. They lived in what the Dutch call a souterrain, which is actually a French word, which means the basement of a house. Now, I can't remember which TV series it was. There was a UK TV series where they had these, it's like in America, they call them a brownstone, I think. Anyway, the people were living on the top floor, the ground floor, the top floors, and then the staff used to live in the basement, and the kitchen used to be there as well. So typically in the old days, that used to be staff quarters, I guess. I don't know if maybe in the Netherlands as well, I don't know. So, but your windows were actually at street level. When you look out of your windows, all you could see were people's feet in shoes. So that was the view from that house. I have no idea how big it was. Again, these are secondhand memories. But they were living together in a basement. Quite romantic. And that is where I came in the picture as well. In 1959, I was born to these beautiful two people, best parents in the world. That's what most children say, I think, but in my case, it's actually true. So I was born to them, and we did not have a car. We had a motorcycle, and the motorcycle was a Java two-stroke motorcycle. Now, Java, I had to Google this, by the way, was a company based out of Czechoslovakia. Now, Czechoslovakia, of course, doesn't exist anymore. Part of it is now called the Czech Republic. But anyway, it was a manufactured Czech bike. And I apparently used to sit in between them if we needed to go somewhere. So that's quite interesting, right? Especially in winter. Can't have been that warm. They must have dressed me up like an Inuit. I had to think about that, by the way. I don't want to be politically incorrect and call myself an Eskimo. I do believe that Eskimo is now considered a derogatory term, although I'm not confessing I understand why. I don't know. So, but yeah, they must have wrapped me up like a mummy. Is that okay to say, mummy? Because mummies actually come from Egypt, primarily. That's what we know it from. Not that cold in Egypt. Anyway, point being, they wrapped me up to keep me warm. So yeah, that is where I started my life. And I was born in Utrecht in the Diakonesse Ziekenhuis. Ziekenhuis in Dutch means hospital in English. So I was born in the Diakoness Hospital, which was in the center of Utrecht. The building is still there, but it's repurposed now for, I don't know what, actually, something else. It's no longer the hospital. But I was born in that hospital. Now, in the 50s and the 60s, I was actually an exception rather than the rule for being born in a hospital. I'm not quite sure why I was born in the hospital, but in those days, it was like 70% of all deliveries would actually happen at home. The baby would be born at home, delivered by a midwife. And I do believe that the Netherlands has the record of most home deliveries at that stage. I do believe so. I don't know. Not quite sure, but I think so. Now, that has changed drastically because as I have Googled, I mean, I won't profess to be that smart, but according to Google, that has now dropped to 13 to 16% home deliveries. Which I don't know. I mean, to me, it makes sense, to have your baby delivered in the hospital. Even if everything is fine, if there's any complications, then you are already in the right place. But I also do know that there are purists that believe that the birth is something natural and beautiful and should happen as nature intended. I don't know. I'm not a woman, you know? I think I would go for the easy option. That's me. Put me in a bed, give me drugs, inject me with an epidural, and let that baby come. But who am I? I've had a kidney stone. That was painful. If that is like 5% of delivering a baby, I can tell you, I would never want to deliver a baby. So you can count me out of the I want to transition to be a woman group. If it would include childbirth, not for me, but I respect all women for what they do and how they keep our species alive and well on this planet. So those were the first moments of my life. In the first 5 years of that life, I grew up alone because my sister was born 5 years after me and my brother 10 years after me. Now, I do believe that was not by design. I think my parents would have had the desire to have us close together, but apparently that didn't work. I'll be signing off and I hope to see you back. If you want to know when the next video drops, please like, subscribe, and tinkle that little bell so you get an alert. Until then, bye bye.